We are so excited to bring you our recap of the Gilded Age drama, The Alienist. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Jacque Borowski, and this is the premiere episode recap of The Alienist on AFTERBUZZ TV. We're all so excited here. You can find me, 123 Jackie B, on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, but Snapchat, I'm Jackie B123, because Snapchat doesn't like numbers in the front.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Yeah, it's really depressing. Anyway, the rest of my panel.
Yes, and you know what? We're not going to depress you as much as the show could possibly depress you. I am Miss Candy Marie, and you can find me on Instagram at Miss Candy Marie and on Twitter at Sweet Candor TV.
Hey everybody, I'm Alice Ford. You can find me on Twitter at Alice L. Ford and on Instagram or Facebook at Alice's Adventures on Earth.
And you can find me at Takira_Shabrae. I am Takira Shabrae.
Fun fact, our intro music is the song Frere Jacques, which was actually in the episode in the season where they, or in the piece of the episode where they dig up the buried twins. I thought Frere Jacques was like Ring Around the Rosies, where it's a song about, the Ring Around the Rosies is a song about the plague. And I thought Frere Jacques was like that, where it had some secret plaguey death meaning because it was playing under that episode, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just a song about people singing to a monk.
Yeah, and I remember singing this song all the time growing up. Like
it did say when I researched it that is like one of the most well-known children's songs in the world. So I suppose that's why they chose it. I just want to start this off with, I know this is a very beloved book, and it was published in 1994. It took a long time to come to the screen, as we know. But this is not going to be a book review. I am reading the book right now. If you want to non-spoilery discuss the book with me on Twitter at 123 Jackie B, you're very welcome to. But since this is really about the show, we're going to keep it to the show. And I want to do that just to avoid spoilers. Even though I do know that we're airing before the West Coast premiere. We hope you join us on YouTube and iTunes afterwards. We'll look for you in the comments to chat with you if you can't chat live.
Yes, and speaking of chatting, I'm going to be here monitoring the live chat. So please, at any point in time during the show, if you want to, talk to us, or if you have any questions, anything, please let us know. And we'll be talking to you all night long via the chat.
Yeah, we're right there. And then the next thing I want to discuss is this series is set in the Gilded Age, which is from the 1870s to 1900. I went to the premiere on the Paramount lot, and first off, it was one of the coolest premieres ever. But
you never know what's going on.
Right.
I know. They made a big show of saying, I think that was Siri, actually, that we heard.
Maybe it's the Alienist.
It's the Alienist giving us information. They said that you could dress like you were from the Gilded Age, and sadly, I did not know what they meant by Gilded Age, and I was like, oh, it's this time period. It actually comes from a Mark Twain book, which was called The Gilded Age of Today. He satirized social problems of the era. It roughly translates to the Victorian era or the Belle Epoque era, which are, I guess, like, to me is more widely known. Maybe for you guys,
Victoria area.
You didn't.
Sure.
Maybe you all knew about the Gilded Age, and I'm just dumb. But anyway, it was a time of rapid economic growth. There was a large influx of immigrants, and you'll see that represented throughout the series. And that was straight from the premiere. They told me personally. No, they told us at the premiere that it was the series was going to focus on the influx of immigrants from the Gilded Age. And there was also a great divide between the rich and the poor, which you're seeing in this series, especially with like the mob and
Exactly.
we'll get into the previews for the next episode, but you're seeing it a lot in the next episode. Something that I loved, that I really responded to before the series even started, was the advertising. Their advertising was so on point. What did you guys think?
That was really good.
Amazing. Like, I looked on IMDb and there it was, the Alienist right there, the backdrop, even on YouTube. Phenomenal job of the advertising. I was excited even before I signed up for the panel today. So
right, billboards all over the
TNT is doing a great job.
Yeah, driving down the street, street, I saw the billboard. I was like, yes, our show. Like,
And
so
I'm telling you, a
excited.
billboard will get me every time.
Right?
Every
It was
single
so exciting. I
time.
was like, yes, Dakota Fanning.
Even if it's a billboard for like there's times I'm not a huge opera fan, but there are times like I see a really good opera billboard and I'm like, maybe I should go to the opera. It's a billboard.
Marketing is so important, and they definitely did a good job with the marketing for the
They
show.
did.
Yeah, they really did.
So happy. And also, they admittedly put a lot of like detail into the series, and when you see it, you know, every costume, every set piece has a lot of love behind it, but also they cast big name actors, which is really it's a big trend happening now, and it's really important to marketing a series. You have Luke Evans, who played Gaston, Daniel Bruhl. He's a German-Spanish actor, and it's fascinating to me because I've seen him in other projects using other accents, so it's exciting to
He's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's really
Accents
brilliant.
Are crazy, and he talks about his accents on interviews too. He's like, yeah, just another one, you know, another one to add.
Yeah, he works
Right.
really
Impressive.
hard. I first saw him actually in something called Colonia, which I think is on Netflix now, but it's a Hispanic film, and I think you guys would really be interested in it, so check it out. And then Dakota Fanning, well known
her.
in the U.S. for years and years and
Right.
years.
Probably one of the most successful child actresses.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
And
of
the
all
way her
time.
career has just blossomed over time has
Yeah.
Her
been
growth,
Yes.
amazing.
amazing, and her strength that she plays in this show.
A true
I mean,
feminist.
A true feminist. And it's so crazy because, I mean, this is in 1896-ish, 1800s, late 1800s, and it is still so relevant
Right.
to what we're
Absolutely.
facing, what we're talking about today. And she's like the epitome of the strong woman in a male-driven industry.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right, and she held her own.
She
held her own.
did.
And then big shout out to, we just had a women's march, you
Right.
know, this past weekend. But yeah, she definitely held her own. Her character is just so, I'm addicted to her character already.
Right.
I want to see so much from her. The way that, and, you know, I don't want to step on your toes.
No, go ahead.
Yet, but I mean, just the way that she, like you said, she carried herself, and even when, you know, you could tell they don't respect her. Even the things that they're saying about her, saying to her. I'm just excited. I can't wait to see what else is going to happen with her character over
It's
time.
sad that we're looking at a period piece from 1896 and we're watching things that we can still relate to today. Like
Right.
she has that awkward moment where she goes and the guy's like peeing in front of her and like he makes a reference to his neither region. And then she makes a joke back and you can tell that she's super uncomfortable, but she's trying to still hold her own.
Her strength.
And it's like, yes, while I've never walked in on a male colleague peeing, I have still had, like, as women, we've all had uncomfortable experiences where you're like, oh, I wish I wasn't the only woman here, or I wish I wasn't, like, I wish I was better understood.
Right.
And she quickly, like, she has that vulnerable, like, oh my gosh. But then she's like, okay, I need to get my strength back together. And may I quote, called it a little pink mouse.
Yes.
I just want
That
to.
gave me life.
That's a little
like,
interesting
yes.
twist because she felt that she was like, okay, I'm in a pull gang of boys, so I have
Right,
to throw
right.
fire. So
I think she'll definitely end up being the comic relief of every episode.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
the dry
Absolutely.
humor, but we love it.
Yeah.
I definitely, the other thing was, when I first watched this episode, I was a little put off by not Dakota's acting by any means, but the character's personality, because she makes this big point at the intro. She's like, she won't let him call her by her first name, Sarah. It has to be
Miss Howard.
Miss
Respect
Howard.
me.
Miss Howard.
Miss Howard.
Yeah. And she's making this big point of like, I'm a professional, blah, blah, blah. And that when you're a woman watching it, you're like, I don't know, this was me personally. I was like, just be cool with them, you know? And then I have to think, no, this is this time period and she's not getting respected. And the only way she knows how to be respected is to put these boundaries in place.
And we can't forget that women couldn't even vote back then. This is what, 1896?
Yeah.
Yes.
Women, we didn't even have the right to vote, you know, let alone she is in a male-dominated police force. There is no other woman. You look around, she's the only person that looks like her.
She's
the only,
first.
exactly. She's
the
the
first
very
one to
first.
work in that at the New York.
So
Police
she has to set a
Department, so-
precedent. She has to make
Right.
them respect her, teach them how to respect her.
Right.
And
We
you
also
look at
knew.
the series and the only other prominent female characters are either houseworkers or prostitutes. So here you have the only main female character in this is her, and so she's trying to hold her own in this field where it's like, well, you're showing the other options that women can have is to either like be the woman who's like cleaning Chrysler's boots, or to be the woman who's like sleeping with John Moore.
Right.
Well, yeah, and this was before most women even worked, outside the home in those times. So, I mean, it's a pretty big position for her.
Right.
Absolutely.
So Dakota, expect a lot of love from our panel.
Yes.
Strong women. Yes. So we're gonna always have your back, girl.
Right.
I am sorry. Okay, so we have this murder, and the murder is Giorgio Santarelli, who is called Gloria. He's a prostitute from Paris's Hall. His genitalia has been removed. His eyes have been removed. Chunks of his body have been removed. We see the killer in the series feeding the body parts to the cat and probably eating them too, because
for himself.
for himself. So you have someone who's a cannibal who, and we know by the end of the episode, I'm assuming that kid from the preview, this is his next victim. So he's killing children, but
Boys.
he's eating them.
And boys.
Well, he
Boys,
kills girls too, because the twins,
But-
one of them was a girl.
Targeting
If it's
like
related.
passion. I guess
Right.
like the
Yeah.
passion.
Who
Yeah.
knows?
If
Maybe
it's
it's not.
related, because the passion, I guess, is what I'm referring to. Because obviously he does kill the female twin Sophia, but there's so much passion, and even Dr. Chrysler mentioned that. He was like, I'm more
Yes.
concerned about the brother Benjamin. Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's so much passion in the killing of Benjamin. So what is it about? I'm sure that we'll find out, but it, for some reason, targeting, more of a passion with little boys that like to dress like girls.
I think that's such a great point what you said, and I want to go back to when Chrysler, is it Chrysler?
Chrysler.
when he had a conversation with Mr. Wolf, and he said, you stabbed Edwin 20 times. So that led us to also believe it was an act of passion because of how it was done. Now, one thing that I did write was that the killer is avenging, I feel like he's avenging the death of someone else. And that's there was a, I think it was towards the end of the episode where it showed like a picture of Paris's Hall, and what I felt appeared to be like, I guess the killer holding like a picture of a boy, and it had Paris's Hall at the bottom. And for me, that was like, okay, that's a note, that's a detail. Let me remember that, because I felt like, okay, well, maybe there was a boy, there was some significance behind him avenging somebody's death that was close to him that died. And then we're talking about, a murder of passion. So I feel like there is some type of connection that we're actually going to find out sooner or later, that this killer is related to somebody that may have been killed, that was in his family, or somebody maybe even that he cared about dearly.
Right.
So,
And he was holding a picture of, quote, Gloria, which is the Santorini boy.
Right.
That's the picture that he was holding.
oh,
So-
that's the picture. Okay. Because I saw it, and it had Paris's Hall on it.
Right, and
Okay.
it was actually Gloria, which is, like they mentioned,
kid that was killed,
the name that they that the Santorini boy went by.
Interesting.
At the Paris's
There's
Hall,
something
so-
obsessive about it, and there's something ritualistic about it as well.
Yeah, way too much passion.
Yeah, so I think we'll see a lot more of those photographs in the upcoming
Yeah, you know what?
episodes,
I'm
too.
actually. What's so interesting is have you guys ever seen Mindhunter, which is a Netflix series? I'm watching it at the same time as that.
Mindhunter.
that
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I'm watching it at the same time, and it's a 70s. It's a series that is set in the 1970s, and basically it's the FBI trying to start their psychological profiling department. And the heads of the FBI are very resistant to this. And you have one gung-ho guy who's like, well, we should be interviewing serial killers to see what's inside their minds. And this series is interesting to me because it's that same kind of, you have the main police officers who think one way, where they're just like, well, this person is a monster and they killed this other person, so it must be Wolf, bye.
Right.
And then you have this person who's well versed in psychology who says, like, no, let's really look at this. Let's look at what he's doing. Let's look at his motives, every detail. One of the most telling parts to me is when he goes to Wolf and he says, well, what was the eye color of the first guy you killed? Right. And he's able to say blue instantly. And then the second guy, he can't say anything. And he's like, well, he's profiled this guy as a man who kills with passion. He kills because he's like so like obsessed with something versus someone who's more methodical, which he mentions, like these cuts, everything is done very methodically.
And it makes it sound like that he's also, Dr. Chrysler is obsessed with that understanding. I mean, like we start to, you see him zone out into a moment when he's like really discussing like the details of the murder and how he can figure out the why behind this. And we start to see like him kind of sink into that deep, dark, like you mentioned, like his soul might be blackened and at the end. That's what was really
I feel like that's because the mother is blaming him for the death of her son. You know, she's like, I blame you. You're the reason why my children are dead. My only 2 children are dead because of you. So to have that on you, for somebody to blame you and for you to feel like you, in a sense, I feel like he thought that he was doing everything he could to help them, but
he thought he was doing the right thing because he was saying I was telling.
That's like the worst feeling ever.
He was saying he's telling this boy who dresses like a girl to live his truth, basically. And
he's like, he got killed for living his truth. That's what the mother feels guilty. Like. Well, you told him that it was okay, and now my son is dead. So it's like, to live with that is horrible. I would hate to have to live with that. Of course, you're damn right. I'm gonna figure out who did this. If it means going to the what did he say? The depths of the earth.
Of hell, I think.
Of hell. Then
the depths of hell.
Right.
But I think he's maybe gonna go off the deep end a little bit too. I mean, by like that whole ending monologue of saying that he's going to cut throats and gouge people's eyes out if he has to so that he can become this serial killer. I'm like, you're in for you're in for some trouble.
Have you guys ever seen the Hannibal series?
Yes.
It reminded me of what's the name of the doctor, the detective in the Hannibal series. Like, he gets so obsessed with finding these killers that it kind of like fucks with his mind.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I see this going. Like, he's so obsessed with finding the answer.
We can't forget he is a professional. He's been doing this for a long time, so we can't forget that.
Doesn't mean he can't go crazy.
I know, right? And he's doing something I believe in him. Right. And he's doing something that's not so popular too. Like like you mentioned, like the I guess the Netflix Mindhunter, right? He's doing something that's completely like, you can tell the police don't like him. I mean,
he could give 2.
Right. He couldn't care. And even the Jews, the brothers that he invites in, even down to John Moore. I mean, everybody that he's kind of inviting in to try to figure this out. They're misfits. Yeah. They're a group of people that you wouldn't expect to come together and try to find a killer. And I mean, that's the strength behind it all, like the strength of the misfits. I do think that's why they're all drawn together, because you have in some of these characters like unlikely bonding, and they explain later in the episode that Dr. Chrysler, John Moore, and Teddy Roosevelt all went to Harvard together, and that's how they knew each other, because otherwise you're kind of like, well, how did these guys get together? Because it seems like they're in such different professions, and it seems like, they kind of get along, but not. And so you see that they're all, like, they have this bond and they're all intellectuals, but it's also like they're all kind of outside their own field in one way. Even John Moore, and I think... book readers, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm like literally 3 pages into the book, but I thought John Moore was actually a New York Times reporter in the book. Journalist.
Yeah, like an actual journalist. Whereas here they make him an illustrator, so they put him in kind of the outside of the New York Times, and he's not even like an illustrator for like main items. He's an illustrator for like the fancy style pages.
Right. And I love it because he tells a story in his own way. Like he adds his piece. Like he's not just, oh, let me write about what went wrong or what happened or that sort of thing. Like he's like such a big key to finding out like the why behind it, or like what the
and you have Chrysler challenging him. I mean, you have him trying to challenge him to go deeper. Like you drew this like a Renaissance painting. Like you need to make it look
I love that
medical.
I love it though. I can't wait to see how his character is going to grow over time and how he's going to get better and how his attention to detail is just going to enhance.
He's being challenged, and he's such a complex character. Like we meet him and we
much
see
more
that
to
he
him
has a
than
big heart.
CI.
I want to know what this ring is about. John Moore.
Oh, it's Collateral.
But
what?
No, please explain the Collateral to the audience.
So, explain that point. Yeah.
For the whorehouse, obviously, they're not going to sleep with you unless if you give them collateral, they will sleep with you because they know that if you don't pay them, they have something to keep, so that you're not going to sleep with them and then leave. So that's what the ring and the coin exchange. But obviously, the ring it looks like an engagement ring or like its mother's or like who knows. There's definitely a story there for sure.
Well,
I think
didn't know
with
the collateral
something
thing.
additional. But yeah, that's
interesting.
It's a collateral thing with the exchange of the coin and the ring.
And I like
And
that.
I don't know that because I've done it.
No, it's great. It's great historical fact.
Just so you know.
But you're right. It's they use specifically a ring that looks like an engagement ring, and they have him asking her about some other guy.
Right.
Like,
So
is it
you
a role play or?
well, I think you have this level of like he really is in love with her,
Right.
And she's a prostitute, so she's not gonna like be in love with him or married to him, and he's an
I went
upstanding
to a
citizen.
housewife,
So.
I think they say.
You know what's interesting to me about the Collateral? It's like, what's too much? Like, what exactly, like, wouldn't they trade for sex? And it kind of almost seems like I'm having a hard time articulating myself right now for some reason. But it's like, it reminds me of an addict. You know, they'll trade or anything. They'll sacrifice anything for this addiction, and it seems like that's kind of like what we're seeing. So when I think about a ring like that, you're gonna trade this ring for collateral for sex?
Well, even just like all of the like sex, I guess, in this whole show is just, it's crazy to think that like 1896 doesn't really seem like it was that long ago, and to think that just like sex houses and like whatever you want to call them were just like so rampant and normal for men to be sleeping with children and women just like around every corner. Like that was all they did. It was like they're either in a bar or they're sleeping with somebody
In a brothel.
and and it's like not a big deal. And you know, obviously the mob is involved in the what's it called, Paresis Hall, the children's whorehouse. But I mean, it's just crazy to see how far, I guess, we've maybe come or not come as a society.
Well, I mean, you think one of the major employments for women at the time was to be a prostitute.
Right.
One of the major lucrative employments at the time. I mean,
for a woman.
yeah, for a woman. And so here you have these, as I said earlier, these juxtaposition of careers where you have like the women in the whorehouse are all like beautifully dressed.
Right.
And then you juxtapose them with Sarah Howard, where she's kind of, her dress is more masculine. She's always wearing these little hats. Not that people didn't wear hats in this era, but like she's wearing a very like kind of masculine hat.
Broad shoulders.
Yes.
Right.
And well, those shoulders were considered fashionable at the time, but she's wearing like, so she's got this blend of like masculine versus like fashionable.
Right.
And then you have her in that episode where they take off the corset and you can tell she just hates it.
Yeah.
Right.
She just hates
Right.
it.
Yeah.
She said, screw them all.
And I also
So
really
likely.
want to know what the previous relationship is with her and Moore, because they kind of mentioned that he obviously took or did some drawing
drew
of
her,
her
yeah.
at some obviously social event, but I would really like to know like what that was for, why she's so mad at him.
Well, because
about
when you,
it.
and then you see the, not to get too much in the
I know,
previews,
right?
but you see in the previews of next episode that like they clearly know each other pretty well.
yeah.
I feel like maybe there was like a crush when they were younger, you know, and maybe I don't know, he fancied her, and I don't know, we'll see.
I like that term, fancy.
I'm excited to see what that turns into.
Changing course a little bit back to the murder-ish stuff. The Zweig file. Did any of you find it curious that like he gets the file and he says there's no details and no evidence?
Yeah.
We already know there's some like shadiness going on in the police, obviously not on Teddy Roosevelt's part, but on behalf of these other officers who are accepting bribes from the mob.
Right.
So I did find that super curious, and I just wanted to note it's like he's saying there's no details, there's no evidence. Like usually if you have a murder like that, you would want to bring in someone who would draw them, or you would want to sit there and now we have the diagram of the body where you point out stuff and say like this happened and this happened and that
but not
happened.
unless you're trying to cover it up.
Exactly.
Right. So
the old commissioner, I don't know if you guys caught that, but the old commissioner was obviously like in bed with all those cops that are covering stuff up, and now that he's gone, he's like pretty ticked off that
Dr. Chrysler has kind of brought in this new age of
and Roosevelt.
And
I think he's just mad that he's there too, because he thinks obviously that he's maybe going to turn some stuff upside down.
And I am very excited about the inclusion of Teddy Roosevelt. He's obviously like a huge like a huge figure in American history. He was a police commissioner in New York at the time, and when I think of Teddy Roosevelt, I think of like fat glasses, Rough Riders, Teddy Roosevelt, this was fun to see like an interpretation of Teddy Roosevelt like before he became president.
Right.
Such a different light.
I think it's always so cool when they take fictional stories and they try to collaborate them with what's really going on with our history. That's really, really cool.
Right.
The other thing, did you guys catch this? This like was a thing that kind of ticked me off a little bit with the illustration thing. There's all these photographs of everyone, but we're using illustration and not taking crime scene photos. I don't know.
Well, let's think about the technology, where they were with technology then. I think, I don't really think that the technology had advanced to that point where they could actually capture photos and pictures and the best.
Well, no,
they could. I just think the thing
all throughout the rest of the episode of the children,
really?
those are photographs.
I think I'm going to interpret it rather than, obviously there's an artistic license there wanting like the illustrator to draw it. But at the same time, there's probably not a lot of money in that police department. And you'd have to be able to like pay some guy who you trust to come up there and take the photos because the equipment is like heavy and expensive.
True. Yeah,
So
that's true.
That's a good point.
The cameras were really huge.
And so like they were already hassling more when he gets to the scene as a well-known New York Times illustrator. Think of like all the vetting they'd have to do for a camera guy.
Isn't that crazy though that they, up until this relationship with Moore, that they weren't doing any sort of anything at the crime scenes, like no photographs, no illustrations.
Yeah.
It's like you said, like that crime file was totally empty. Which just like blows
they
my
weren't
mind.
even interested in finding out who the real killer was. They just wanted to pin
Exactly.
everything on Wolf.
Yeah.
Because it was easy.
It's a win. Like for when you're a police not to say this is how modern police departments operate because that's not true, but like when you think historically, a lot of police departments, they're like, we got to find the killer because that's a win for us. We look like frigging idiots if we can't pin down the killer.
Right.
And so
absolutely.
a lot of times, and yeah, to an extent today, it still does happen. A lot of times, like it's easier to go for the easier person, the more obvious choice, than it is to like really like forensically look at something and say, okay, maybe we don't have this person.
Right.
And we're looking at the, like, I personally feel like the birth of forensics in general, like the brothers that come in, even they said, oh, well, the police won't really miss us if we're gone. And he was like, oh, we're Jew and they don't like us. Like this whole science behind looking at the depth of bones and tissue and all of that, like they felt like they weren't that important. But
Have you guys ever seen The Nick? Sorry, this is going to be
Yes.
like watch all these other things too.
No, but The Nick is a show that I absolutely thought of when we were watching this. I was like, oh my God, it's kind of like The Nick with Sherlock Holmes with bones.
The
And
Nick
like
is
mixture.
set around the same time period, almost exactly. And it's focused on the medical field. And so this reminded me of kind of like the police forensics version of the Nick, where you have in the Nick, it's really interesting because you see all the technology. No, I shouldn't say air quotes. Real. It was technology at the time. The turn of the century technology that people thought like was so innovative, and like we're getting this in this series for forensics.
Yeah.
Right.
And psychology.
It's less this show is by far less gruesome than the Nick.
Yes.
But
I don't know. I was about to say that
watch the Nick and then tell us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I guess in comparison, but for those who saw those drawings and the pictures and just I mean, like they really zoomed in on the detail, like you mentioned before.
Absolutely.
I mean, like the detail of everything, and I was like, "Whoa!"
That eyeball shot is crazy.
The first
eyeball in
the
the
show.
suit.
Hello.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was thinking of because I saw this first on a big screen, and I almost wish they premiered every one of these episodes in a movie theater, because this is like the view and the details, and just like the absolute epicness of the mise-en-scene for this series is amazing. And when you see it on the big screen, everyone around us was like, because it's just so incredible to look at. And that scene where you have the corpse, and then you have the open eye socket, and then they go into the eye socket on a big screen. That's like nuts. You're like, whoa,
Right.
I'm in the eye socket.
And it's crazy because it's based in New York, but they filmed it in Budapest.
Yes,
Which
because it's cheaper.
But they did such an amazing job. I mean, from the buildings to, I mean, it
All the
blows
details.
me away.
Probably also because, I mean, New York now obviously doesn't look that old because there's so much modernization. So it's easier to shut down a street in Budapest.
Yeah.
Right.
New Yorkers would have been a little upset.
Right.
I mean,
And then,
parking alone is already crazy.
Right. So to shut down the street in Budapest and then have it look old. I mean, I guess you can, when I was at the premiere, they do replicate like a Gilded Age block on the Paramount backlot, but it's the Paramount backlot is a historic backlot, so they have limited space. So if you want to do these like long chase scenes where you have like very realistic looking buildings, you can't do it on a backlot because you'd have to stop the chase scene after like 2 seconds.
Stop in reverse.
And then
Stop it, keep going.
And then you go back around the same building.
And then people will be like, why is that building showing up 20 times in this chase scene?
That's true. That's really true.
But anyway, if you want to see pictures of the premiere, which was like absolutely nuts, you can go to my Instagram, 123 Jackie B. If you have any questions or inquiries or about the premiere, you can go there as well. And then I want to ask you guys one last thing. What are you looking forward what are you looking forward to in the next episode? As much as all of the things I'm passionate about here, I'm kind of most curious about what the two guys find out after they look through the bones.
Absolutely.
I'm like so obsessed with figuring. Yeah, I'm so obsessed with figuring out what are they going to find out about that. Yeah. How about you guys?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. My prediction is I definitely want to see a little more of where Miss Howard and Mr. Moore's relationship go. I feel like she's definitely a huge fan of Chrysler, so I feel like she's willing to do more for him at this time. So I want to see what else she's going to get her hands on and what else she can help with in reference to the case.
Do you think there's going to be a love triangle?
Yes.
I do. I could see it, but looking at the episode that was previewed today, I feel like she's going to slowly start to like Mr. Moore more. But like at the beginning when she was like, "Well, who's asking?" I felt like it's because she's been a fan of his work for so long and she kind of fancies him, and maybe more pissed her off when they were kids and he made that picture of her, and so I want to see what happens with those three relationships.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to maybe some more action and maybe some more deaths to take it to a more
like the gory stuff,
dark place. But yeah, I mean, we saw obviously one murder. I think the previews for I'm not really sure if the previews were just for the next episode or if that was like for the whole season, because I was like, whoa, it's got
so much happening.
Episode that is
So
like
much.
Yes.
so many things going on. But I mean, definitely it looked like there was going to be like some more murders, some more action. Definitely I'm interested to see how Miss Howard just evolves too, because obviously in this episode she's pretty buttoned up, but then when she's at home smoking a cigarette and kind of relaxing, you're like, oh, okay. And she's very into the murders, it seems. So I think she's definitely going to grow into maybe like let her hair down a little. We'll see. So I'm excited for that.
You know, just before you go, you said there's so much going on. Like I felt like when I watched this, there's a lot of setup you have to do in a premiere episode, and so we have a lot of stage setting, and there is action, but all of the things you're anticipating, it seems like they come in that second episode, and they come in a wave.
I think it looks like it for sure.
Yeah. I am looking for kind of a little off of you to the growth of the characters, but the twist at the end, the clue, the tongue, the organ in the article.
And how crazy was it? He like flew out of the roof or something. What?
Yeah, we didn't even mention that.
and you see like this killer has something. I think he has something for heights in a weird way, because if you think about it,
Yes, that's a great
kid-
point.
Yes.
the
That's a great
kid on
point.
the bridge, the kids in the water tower effort, and then he like you said, like catapulted like up
Maybe
out
he's
of
not
the,
human.
Maybe he's Batman. Bad Batman.
bad
Batman returns.
twin brother. I don't know. It's so I'm so interested in those small details, because I
Right.
love and I pick up on like, did you guys just see that
Did
girl in
you
the
see
background
that?
blink her eyes 3 times? That means something. Like I'm so like super into I'm so analytical. So
Right.
that was just like, oh gosh, give it to me. Like,
Right,
so
right.
it just dropped me in. So that's what I'm interested
Girl, you
in
just dropped
seeing.
me in just
I know.
now.
That's important, though. I mean,
great point.
that's what this series was made for. It was made for people who want to look for the girl who blinked 3 times and you think it's a message.
It means something.
Like, yeah.
Hashtag blink 3 times. I'm just saying.
Hashtag Bad Batman.
Right.
Just one more announcement before we leave. There's a costume exhibit at the Paley Center in Beverly Hills of the outfits from the whole series, of the Alienist, and it ends on March 25th.
Nice.
So, and they had some of the outfits at the premiere, and they were just phenomenal. They're
Wow.
so cool. And the Paley Center is a great little area if you ever get a chance to get over there. And I'm gonna try and go there at some point.
We should go together.
Yeah, we should all go together.
It's a bonding
Discuss
time.
after.
Like after the 25th, I'm like, okay, so what do we have to do? Like borrow these things and have like a little like Alienist day on the panel.
Right.
Like,
You guys can
like
meet
a
us
little
there.
Gilded
Meet
Age,
us there.
right.
We can all dress like we're from the Gilded Age.
We'll have an Instagram party. How about that?
Which is fun because at the premiere they did suggest. I don't have any Gilded Age outfits lying around,
We
but
gotta work on that.
they suggested you dress like that, and there was like a guy dressed like the murderer guy from the series, like chasing you around, which was like exciting / creepy. My fiance pointed out, and I was like, "What the crack?" Because he was like jumping out of the bushes, and you're like, "What?"
Loved it.
A little very much realism at that premiere.
I love that.
So thank you guys for tuning in. We would love for you guys to tune in with us next week. Join the conversation on Twitter. Join us in the comments. We will check the comments and chat with you there. I'm 123 Jackie B. I have I recapped the Drag Race. I'm recapping the Drag Race show this week, and then I actually have one of my scripts being read on the Popcorn Talk this Friday at 10 a.m. here at AfterBuzz Popcorn Talk.
Please support her. I want to
Yes.
check it out.
Thank
See what this
you.
script is
Thanks.
about.
Ladies, where can they find you?
Yes, they can find me at Miss Candy Marie on Instagram and on Twitter at Sweet Kendor TV.
And you can find me at Alice L. Ford on Twitter and at Alice's Adventures on Earth on everything else.
Yes, and again, I'm Takira Shabrae. You can find me on Instagram at Takira_Shabrae.
Thank you guys for joining us.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.